There will be one key difference between Reacher and its upcoming spin-off, and it could decide whether Prime's Neagley-centric story will succeed or fail. With Alan Ritchson returning to lead the Reacher Season 3 cast, the latest live-action adaptation of Lee Child's Jack Reacher books will become a TV franchise when Maria Sten reprises her role as Frances Neagley in her own show. However, Sten and the rest of the Neagley cast will be tasked with exploring a unique corner of the fictitious, action-packed universe. Although Sten's presence in the Reacher Season 2 cast was faithful to the source material, as Neagley appears in the book on which the show's second run was based, her casting in Season 1 placed her in the events of a story in which she didn't originally feature. The confirmation of yet another return in Reacher Season 3 confirms that showrunner Nick Santora intends to continue making heavy use of Frances Neagley, even if it means turning a blind eye to the Lee Child books, and the spin-off compounds his affinity for the character in a really interesting way. Child is fast approaching the 30-book mark in his Jack Reacher series, and so far, Neagley has appeared very little in the franchise's source material. While Reacher has a solid plan of using one book per season to create the storyline, the spin-off will be uncharted territory due to the fact the writers will be shaping an entirely original story for Sten's character. As such, while those familiar with the books have been able to accurately predict certain events in Reacher so far, this will be impossible to do with Neagley. With Sten being required to lead the spin-off, it's becoming increasingly unlikely she'll continue to be Reacher's on-screen sidekick in the main show, at least, not for a while. The increased usage of Neagley in the main show is one of the biggest deviations from Child's work so far. With Sten being required to lead the spin-off, it's becoming increasingly unlikely she'll continue to be Reacher's on-screen sidekick in the main show, at least, not for a while. So, although it'll be a shame that Neagley probably won't appear as regularly alongside Ritchson's titular character, her departure will at least result in the Reacher's return to a more faithful adaptation of the Lee Child books. The fact that Neagley will be brand new content is a welcome bonus. One of Reacher's biggest appeals is the isolated, intense nature of the season-long stories. The adaptation does an awesome job of capturing the semi-anthological nature of the source material, and the established popularity of the individual books that have already been chosen to adapt is a great litmus test for how successful the live-action versions will be. Neagley doesn't share this advantage with Reacher, so the height of success the spin-off can establish remains a worrying enigma. It would be pointless for Neagley to copy Reacher's format. If this is the plan, it would make more sense to keep Maria Sten in the main show. It would be pointless for Neagley to copy Reacher's format. If this is the plan, it would make more sense to keep Maria Sten in the main show. What's more likely is that Neagley will have distinct differences in its storytelling approach and could carry the larger stories across multi-season arcs. While similar shows have proven to be successful when using this framework, existing Reacher fans may expect something more akin to the property that spawned the spin-off. Only time will tell what Neagley will look like, but there are some big decisions that need to be made. Although it would make sense for Neagley to function as a standalone show that makes sense out of context, the spin-off also has a responsibility to align itself with Reacher in whatever ways it reasonably can. The Sten-led project is well within its rights to establish new tropes and storytelling techniques, but separating it too much from Reacher would create too much of a disconnect and also risk reducing the appeal to those who have come to expect certain things from the franchise. Of course, Neagley lacks proper source material, but that doesn't mean it can't do a convincing job of making everyone understand it takes place within the same continuity as Reacher. Interestingly, although they weren't loved by all, Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher movies are evidence that Lee Child's work can be adapted with various tones. While Cruise's brief cross-section of the saga took the form of a relatively generic action franchise, Prime's version has adopted a notably grittier tone. So, Neagley will have choices to make when extending the Reacher universe. It just needs to make the right ones.